Well, this is a message I've not really preached before. I've done it once with my own girls back home, and I wrestled whether or not this was something to speak, because often when you go somewhere, it's nice to preach a message where you can drift from your notes and you can be more in the moment, and when it's something that's really working itself still in you, it's a little bit more exposing and raw to share. But I just sensed this was the right message for this morning, and so I hope it helps someone. I know it's helped me. It's a journey that I have been on. And actually, of all the messages that I have written, of which there are many because I'm a local church girl, this one came to me in what I can only describe as a God download. I felt God download it into my spirit because it was something that I had never thought about teaching on before. It's something that I'd never seen in Scripture before. And so I knew it was God getting my attention. And if you like the title, a title for a message, I want to talk to you just for the next few moments about beginning again. Begin again. You know, oftentimes when we go through something that's difficult, whether it be a loss or a betrayal, whether it be an offense or a hurt, our natural flesh, our emotional personhood wants to usually run away from what it is that we have had to deal with. We want to escape the pain. We want to move away from where that hurt happened to us. We want to go and hide somewhere so that we can heal in private. We want to walk away from all we knew because it's just easier sometimes to escape than it is to face the reality that is in front of you. And there are many examples of that being something that people choose. You will know people that could be here but have chosen not to be here because it's just too hard for them. That's where the divorce happens. That's where the loss happened. That's where the breakdown happened. And so it's just easier to kind of go away and reinvent your life rather than actually stay and begin again. But there is a grace in God, and there is a wisdom in God, and there is a strength that God has for us at seasons in our life to not escape the hurt, to not escape the problem, but to find the strength in the same place where it happened, with the same people at times that it happened with, to find a way to begin again. If we could understand that about God, how many more relationships could we save, and how many years would we not waste, and how much good stuff would not actually just be thrown out in the midst of the bad stuff. I think there's a lot of wastage in the kingdom of God. There's a lot of relationships that could have been salvaged, but we just threw it away because it was too hard. There's a lot of relationships in our own families that are destroyed and broken, and we have no more energy left to fix them, and the enemy rubs his hands and goes, I'm glad one more dysfunctional family in the kingdom of God, one more broken mother-daughter relationship in the kingdom of God, one more set of relatives that can't stand the sight of each other in the kingdom of God. I think the enemy likes it when we run away. I think he likes it when we avoid. I think he likes it when we choose to do the easier option rather than the hard work of beginning again. But there is something about the word of God and something about the way that God is wired that wants to extend to us another option on the table. I'm not talking about staying in an abusive marriage. I'm not talking about staying in a place that is harmful to your life to stay. But I'm talking about the stuff that actually, with grace and patience and mercy and wisdom and forgiveness, we could overcome. Not everything is a walk out the door. Not everything is a Gloria Gaynor theme tune moment. So now go. Walk out the door. Just turn around now. Don't come back anymore. Not everything is allowed to have that theme song about it. There are some times when God will say, I want you to stay because you're staying. Though it's costly, you're hanging around what you want to avoid is going to do something in and through you that will be a gift not just to you, but to your children and your children's children. You can stop the pattern in your family history even, of breakup after breakup, of walkout after walkout, by understanding something of the nature of Jesus that was the chief of reconciliation. You know, we read stories in the Bible of those that ran, but we also read stories of those that began again. Think for a moment about the story of Zacchaeus. It's an incredible story of Jesus noticing a guy that everyone else was avoiding. He came to Zacchaeus and he called him down from a tree, and we know the story and we think how gracious of Jesus, but actually there's two miracles that take place in that story. Because Zacchaeus chooses to begin again. Zacchaeus realizes, I have offended everyone in my town. I have stolen from those that didn't have money to get by on their own, and I have taken from them what was not mine to take. Zacchaeus is very aware in that moment of his own sins, but Zacchaeus volunteers. He's not told by Jesus, he's not instructed by Jesus, but something inside him says, I don't want to pack up and move town. I want to find the ability to begin again where I live. I want to find the ability to begin again telling a different chapter of my story here where I have grown up and here where I am from. And so he decides to do actions that allow him to have the grace to begin again. He goes round and he visits the very people he has ripped off, and he apologizes for what he has done, and he pays back more and above what he has taken. What's Zacchaeus modeling? He's modeling that if you are humble enough and willing enough, you can begin again. Peter denied Christ, but Jesus helped him begin again. This does not have to be the end for you. This does not have to be the final mistake that wipes you out for the rest of your ministry. There's so much more for you, Peter, but you're going to have to learn the grace, swallow your pride, learn the humility, and learn the journey of beginning again. For if you can begin again, so can others in the church that you will go on and establish begin again. Jacob and Esau had a terrible relationship. There was deception, and there was betrayal, and there was hurt. And they separated because of that. They were people that couldn't get along, couldn't be in the same town, brothers. But there was a moment where there was going to be a point where their lives would reconnect. And God said, if you are willing, I can help you begin again. And I want to say to you in this room today, if you are willing, in the place that is painful, in the place that is maybe grief-filled, in the place that is maybe broken, there is a power available to you to begin again. I want to look at the story of a young man that did just that. He went on a journey, and it was not a journey that he had planned to take. It was a journey that kind of was thrust upon him, and he had every right not to begin again. He had every reason why he shouldn't begin again. He had all of the textbook excuses and examples of why he should not extend grace, or why he should not be forgiven, or why he should not extend favor, because he had been betrayed, he had been offended, and there had been loss. But God was about to bring back his past into his future, and he was going to be faced with a moment where he would either choose to reconcile or take revenge. And there will be moments in all of our journey where situations outside of our control will bump us into the past that was painful, and will ask from us the same choice. Do you want revenge, or do you want to reconcile? Do you want to speak out your hurt, or do you want to speak out healing? Do you want to move forward, or do you want to regurgitate the past? You know, those moments that happen sometimes in life, the coincidences. You know, the person that you have been hating on for months, and then you go to the grocery store. Hello. And they are there on aisle 7, and you're like, no way. I thought they'd moved. I thought they'd left town. And you do everything in your power to avoid aisle 7. But the one thing you came to the store for is on aisle 7. And you try and disguise who you are, and you try and go sideways with your cart. But the inevitable moment will happen where you bump into the one that you're trying to avoid, the family reunion that you don't want to go to because you know who's going to be at the family reunion, and the pain is going to want to speak, and so you avoid things. The church is brilliant at avoiding situations that we just need to face. Avoiding the confrontation that's not going to go away unless we deal with the situation. But we have to understand there are moments that may be out of our control, but we can make a choice that will actually change the course of our future, and we can begin again. So as I talk, God will bring to mind a loss, a pain. He will bring to mind something you're struggling to get over. He will bring to mind something that you are emotionally torn apart about. He will bring to mind a person or a face, because that's what the Spirit does when you begin to open the Word. And when He does, don't dismiss it. Just let God speak. The person I want to talk to you about is a guy named Joseph. Joseph had every wrong done to him. He was hated by his own brothers. He was thrown in a pit for something that wasn't even his issue. The insecurity and the jealousy of the others caused them to so dislike him that they wanted him gone. His father made him a coat which he didn't ask for. He didn't say, I want to be daddy's favorite. He didn't look for it. It just came to him, and now he's living with this coat on his shoulders, which his brothers hate him for, and we know the story. He is left for dead. And if that wasn't bad enough, life gets worse, because now he finds himself as a slave, and then he finds himself falsely accused of something that was not his fault. He is accused by Potiphar's wife of something that he never did, and on a false accusation is thrown in a prison cell. And then in a prison cell, when he asks someone who is kind to remember him, they forget him. I mean, his life just went from bad to worse to worse. Joseph knew what it was to have pain, to have mistake, to have false accusation, to have betrayal. But we all know that his journey didn't end in a prison, it ended in a palace, and now he is in a place of power, and now he gets the opportunity to bring rule, and now he doesn't just have his dad's robe, he has a robe that gives him power throughout the whole land. And because of a circumstance that is in the land of famine, he's about to bump into his past. Now the power is in his hand, and the past is coming calling. His brothers, because of the famine, are coming to seek help, for they find themselves with no food and no land that will give them a harvest. And so they come to the prime minister, unaware that it is their own flesh and blood, the one that they hurt, the one that they inflicted pain upon. At age 39, he's about to bump into the people that at age 17 had left him for dead. Those moments are moments that define our life. And Joseph is not known, I don't think. If you were to talk to other Bible teachers, maybe they would disagree. But after looking at Joseph's life, I wouldn't say he was an over-emotional man. When he's thrown in the pit, there are not pages and pages of him lamenting and screaming and crying and getting angry. When he's falsely accused, we don't read chapters and chapters. We could, of his anger and his pain. In fact, we read the opposite. We read that when he's in a place of imprisonment, he's actually acting in a way that is set an example for the whole prison. He is dignified. He is not bitter. He is becoming better. So he wasn't a man that was with wild emotions out of control. So it may surprise you that in these next 18 minutes, I am going to take you on a journey of how to begin again through Joseph's tears. Joseph cried 5 sets of tears to begin again. And I believe we must journey the same tears in all of our walk to begin again. And as I identify each set, maybe you'll find which set you are currently on, and maybe it will give you the strength to go to the next set. Now, I'm not talking about whining and wailing. Joseph was not a hound dog crying all the time. I believe these were tears that were very controlled in the best possible way. And you know what? These waterworks that we have, they're a gift from God. In fact, it says in Psalms that God bottles your tears and he writes a ledger. So God doesn't see them as a waste, but often we waste our water on the wrong soil. We water our past instead of water our future. We cry over our pain instead of crying to get our harvest and healing. The waterworks that God has allowed us to have, the tears that we can have fall, can be part of our renewal, not part of our drowning and self-pity. And if you are grieving, if you are betrayed, if you are hurt, if you are aching, maybe I can encourage you, like Joseph did, to begin again. The first set of tears are recorded in Genesis 42. His brothers enter the place where he is now in charge of the land, and they come and they bow down before the one that they have betrayed, and they have no clue that this is their brother. And they come in, and as they bow down before him, Joseph is all aware of the pain of the past that is in front of him. And it says in 42 verse 6, so when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. And as soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Where do you come from, he asked. From the land of Canaan, they replied, to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. And then he remembered his dreams about them. Just stop right there. Because many of us have glamorized his dream as if the dreams were going to be about an amazing moment of miraculous things happening. But his dream was about a painful moment he was going to have to deal with. You are spies. You have come to see me where our land is unprotected. No, my lord, they answered. Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies. No, he said to them, you have come to see where our land is unprotected. But they replied, your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, but the one is no more. They're telling Joseph about Joseph. And as they begin to recount the story, they begin to talk amongst themselves because he's talking to them harshly. And they said to one another in verse 21, surely we are being punished because our brother, we saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us. And Reuben replied, didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we got to give an account for his blood. And they did not realize that Joseph could understand them because he was using an interpreter. Here come the first set of tears. He turned away from them and he began to weep. But then he came back and he spoke to them again. In order to begin again, the first set of tears you'll find yourself crying are what I call the tears of residue. You know, residual pain is a real thing. There's even studies that talk about people that have had limbs amputated, and long after the limb has been amputated, their body still has signs of pain in the area where the limb once was. It holds on like a memory to the pain that was once in that wound, to the pain that was once in that body. And it's very real that after you've been through a trauma, through a loss, through a hurt, through a betrayal, that though you may move on like Joseph moved on from age 17 to 39, though years had gone by, when the past showed up in front of him, residual pain came to the surface. He remembered what was done to him. He remembered what had happened to him. He remembered how he'd been treated, and that's why his words were harsh, because the hurt was real. He bumped into something that was something he wanted to forget about, but right in front of him right now was an opportunity to begin again. And if he was going to begin again, he was going to have to let go of the residual pain. And if you're going to begin again in a friendship, in a relationship, you're going to have to let go of the residual pain. You can't keep bringing it up every time it suits you. You can't mention the war when you pass the war. You can't bring up the comment after you have said, I forgive you for the comment. But if you don't let the residual pain out, it will stay inside your bones. So don't fight the tears that are the tears of residue. And in this moment, we have not seen Joseph cry before, but in this moment, as they don't even know who he is, it says he turned from them and he wept. They didn't last long. They didn't go on for months. Hello. Note to self. But they did come. And they did fall. And they were real. And they needed to be released. And they needed to be bottled by God. They were his residual tears. He cries the tears. And then he comes back into the conversation. Joseph then begins to ask them about the youngest brother. Go get the youngest one of you and bring him to me. I want the whole group here if you're going to ask for my help. And so go get the youngest one. And that begins to cause a little bit of a problem because they have already told their father that they would go without him, his father that was clinging to this youngest one. But Joseph insisted, you must go bring him. Bring my brother Benjamin. And so they do. They bring in Genesis 43 Benjamin with them now to face Joseph, still unaware that this is Joseph, still unaware that for him this is part of beginning again. When he last saw Benjamin, he was age 4. And now he was 26 years of age. A lot of time had gone by, and Benjamin was a brother he loved deeply. So now he finds himself with another set of tears that he is going to have to navigate, because as Benjamin is in front of him, it says that Joseph picked out his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, and he asked, is this your youngest brother that you told me about? And they said, God be gracious, that he said, God be gracious to you, my son. And here come the tears, verse 30. Deeply moved on seeing his brother and about to burst into tears, Joseph hurried out into another room and had a good cry. These are what I call the tears of regret. I know we're not supposed to have regrets. I know we're supposed to say, I don't regret anything. But the fact is, there are times when things happen in your life and there is a loss. And he realized my 4-year-old brother was not responsible for what went on. My 4-year-old innocent brother did not make the decision to throw me in a pit, and I have lost years with a brother that I would have loved to have been there from. I have not been at the birthday party. I have not been at the celebration. I have not been there when he graduated. I have missed years of seeing this brother grow and seeing the brother in front of him who he'd never even got to know. He realized, I am overwhelmed with emotion. There were tears of regret, the years I never got, the loss that I've had, the moments that have been stolen from me. It's a real thing. And it's okay to let those tears fall. But watch Joseph. Joseph knows he needs to cry them. Joseph knows he feels them. But Joseph goes into another room. He removes himself from the presence of the brothers, because tears of regret don't need to be put on people that don't need to see them. You don't need to cry them over your children or your grandchildren. You have to have the strength, the self-control we just heard about, to take those tears into a place where God can bottle them and you can release them. And it's often behind closed doors, on your own, on your knees, and you go, God, I have questions, I have regrets, I have things that I am not fully satisfied about, but I can't begin again while I hold these on the inside. So God, I gotta let them out. And then I love this line. It says he had a good cry. Listen to this. Then he washed his face, got a grip on himself, and said, let's eat, because food fixes everything. He was completely in control. He's like, I need this moment. You might not need it. Benjamin was ignorant to it. He didn't know all that had lost because he'd never known Joseph. But Joseph needed it. He needed this moment. I need this moment. I don't need you in this moment with me. I don't want to tell you about this moment. This is my moment, but it will just take me a moment. And he excused himself from the rest, and he shut the door, and he cried the tears, and then he's like, okay, I feel like I got them out. And then I love, he washed his face, came back in the room, and I love this line, he got a grip on himself. Hello. Some of you need to get a grip on yourself. Enough is enough. How many more years is it going to go on? How much longer are we all going to have to tiptoe around your emotions? How many more people are going to feel bad if they say that thing that reminds you of the other thing? How long do we have to dance around it? There has to come a point where you have self-control and you say, I think for the sake of everyone in my world, I need to begin again. And in order to begin again, I need to remove, I need to cry, I need to wash my face, and then I need to get a grip, and I need to eat, and I need to move on. Tears of regret, they must fall, but they must not fall forever. They must be washed, and you must move on. Then he asks his brothers to leave the youngest with them. He says, why don't you leave Benjamin with me? And they still don't know who he is. Leave Benjamin here because you know what? I want you to go get my father, and he doesn't let him know it's his father. He goes, go get your dad, bring him too. Let's have the whole family here. But leave Benjamin with me. And him saying, leave Benjamin with me, brings up the loss and the pain that his brothers have concealed to this point. And so in Genesis 44, at the suggestion of keeping back one of the youngest brothers, it says that they begin to say, we can't do that. And the eldest brother begins to say, we can't do that because we promised that we would bring back this son. See, this is what happened. And he begins to explain. He says, if I show up to my father without the boy, in verse 32, this son with whom his life is so bound up, the moment he realizes that boy is gone, he's going to die on the spot. He'll die of grief, and we, your servants, who are standing here before you, we will have killed him. And that's not all. I got my father to release the boy to show him to you by promising if I don't bring him back, I'll stand condemned before you all my life. So let me stay here as your slave, not this boy. Let the boy go with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? Oh, don't make me go back and watch my father die in grief. What's he saying? He's saying, I once stuffed up. I've done this to my dad once before. I've left him with a life of misery because of my selfish choices, and I will not repeat my offense. And as those words come out of his brother's mouth, the next set of tears begin to fall. And these tears are entirely the turning point for beginning again, because these tears are not anymore about the past. These tears are about the future. These tears are not anymore about the pain. These tears are about the healing. And in verse 45, at the sound of their words, it says, Joseph couldn't hold himself any longer, keeping up a front before all his attendants, which he'd done for so well up until this point. But he cried out, leave, clear out, everyone leave. So there was no one with Joseph when he identified himself to his brothers. But his sobbing was so violent that the Egyptians couldn't help but hear him. The news was soon reported to Pharaoh's palace. Listen now to these tears that I call the tears of reconciliation. Joseph spoke to his brothers. I am Joseph. Is my father really still alive? His brothers couldn't say a word. They were speechless. They couldn't believe what they were hearing and seeing. And then he said the words that tears of reconciliation can only say, "Come closer. I've kept you like this, but these tears are bringing you closer, not pushing you away." Joseph said to his brothers, "I'm Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Listen to this line, because only tears of reconciliation can say this. "But don't feel badly. Don't blame yourselves for selling me. I now see God was behind it. God sent me here ahead of you to save your lives. There's been a famine in the land for 2 years, and the famine's going to continue for 5 more, neither plowing nor harvesting. But God sent me on ahead to pave the way and make sure there was remnant in the land to save your lives in an amazing act of deliverance. So you see, it wasn't you who sent me here, but it was God. He set me in a place as a father to Pharaoh. He put me in charge of his personal affairs, and he made me a ruler of all of Egypt. So you go get my father and you tell him, 'Your son Joseph says, I'm master of all Egypt. Come as fast as you can and join me here. I'll give you a place in Goshen where you'll be close to me, you and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks, your herds, and anything else you can think of. I'll take care of you completely. There are still 5 more years of famine ahead. I'll make sure all your needs are taken care of, and everyone connected with you. You won't want for a thing. Look at me. You can see for yourselves.' And my brother Benjamin can see for himself that it's me. It's my own mouth telling you all this. Tell my father about the high position I hold in Egypt. Tell him everything you've seen. Don't take all day. Hurry up, get my father and bring him down here." And then Joseph threw himself on his brother Benjamin's neck, and he wept. And then Benjamin wept on his neck. And then he kissed each brother, and he wept over each brother. And only then were his brothers able to talk with him, because the tears of reconciliation wash away what the tears of regret and the tears of residue cannot. They come from a place where your healing has taken place on the inside, and there is no more bitter in you. There's only better that wants to come from you. The words after the tears of reconciliation are gracious and grace-filled. They are merciful, and they are not frightened to embrace the future. They know what they have lost, and they know what has passed. But they are now more in love with the future and have faith for a better day. And so they say words that release one another from the pain of the past and say, there is a future awaiting us, so go get the family. Tears of reconciliation come like a flood. Tears of reconciliation are often to do with the family that you have journeyed it with. But these tears were not just for a family, they were for a nation, and they were for a future, and they were for a legacy. Time's gone. There's 2 more sets of tears that I'll just mention, and you can go do your own study. But there's a glorious moment where Joseph sees his father. And as his father comes, it says in Genesis 46, as soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father, and they wept for a long time. These are what I call the tears of rejoicing. See, sometimes when we don't begin again, we don't get to rejoice anymore with one another. We cry all the time together, but we've forgotten that actually he turns our weeping and he turns our mourning into dancing, and he gives us beauty for our ashes, but we've got to let him go, and something beautiful can emerge. But there are tears of rejoicing, different tears, happy tears in your future, but you got to let go of the other ones so they can come. Tears where you see such hope, tears where you see such strength, tears that are not sad anymore, but they are saying, I am watering my future. These tears were, wow, you're going to get to see what I never thought you'd see. Wow, we're going to get to spend time in a way that I thought we had lost. Tears of rejoicing, tears of rewriting the next chapters, tears of beginning again. The last few years of Jacob's life, he got to do many things. He got to bless what he never thought he'd get to bless. He got to be around what he never thought he got to be around. And Joseph facilitated those last years of his father's life with provision and with joy and with eating and with laughing and with talking and with rebuilding. And the final set of tears were closing of this circle. Because in Genesis 50, Joseph's father dies. And with his father's death, a fear rises up inside of the brothers. As they begin to wonder, now Dad's gone. Maybe it's all going to go back to how it used to be. Now Dad's not here. Maybe Joseph has actually been resentful all along, and now he's going to unleash his revenge on us. I'm not sure that this is a real deal. I'm not sure that we're not seeing the other side of Joseph. And in Genesis 50, it says, when Joseph's brothers saw their fathers was dead, they said, what if Joseph is holding a grudge? And what if now he's going to pay us back for all the wrongs we did to him? And on hearing this, it says in verse 17, that as they came to their brother and said, please forgive us, don't take revenge against us, it says Joseph wept. And he threw himself towards his brothers and he said, don't be afraid. Do I act for God? Don't you see you planned evil against me, but God used those plans for my good? And as you see all around you right now, life for many people. Easy now. You have nothing to fear. I'll take care of you and your children. These are what I call the tears of restoration. Where Joseph was like, the old me, maybe. But the me that has begun again has truly begun again. And we are not going back where we were. We are not recircling the hurt. We are not going back to how it used to be. I have closed the door. I have shed the tears, and I am willing to begin again. I don't know where this finds you, and I don't know why God asked me to speak it, but I know God did. Because some of you just need to begin again. It's not going to go away. So you're going to have to face it. It's not going to disappear, so you're going to have to deal with it. It's not going to get better if you hide. So you're going to have to figure out how to begin again. And as awkward, as uncomfortable, and at times as embarrassing as it is, there is a journey to freedom. And there is a journey to a fresh future. And there is a journey to tears that are not sad anymore, but they are rejoicing. There is a way to water your future instead of drowning in your past. But you're going to have to be willing to begin again. Let's stand to our feet around the room.